Administration and Operations meeting for December the 10th already. Wow. As far as attendance, we've got Councillor McAlpine is not here today. We've got Councillor Howes and Councillor Garneau with Zoom, and the rest of the committee is on site. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Councillor Chambers.
Just a question on procedure, Mr. Chairman. I was under the impression that we elect chairman and vice chairman at the December meeting each year, and that's not on the agenda. And I'm just wondering if that's an oversight or whether something has changed that I don't know about.
I'll put that to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be an oversight, but I would recommend that we can add that under other business. But it is an oversight.
So we will have the chair, existing chair this meeting, and in other business, we'll have the elections. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm thinking.
We could do it right now, and then it would be like we should be doing it.
Sure, let's do it.
And I would, if that's in order, I would start by moving that we waive number 94, which is that the chairs rotate each year.
Mayor Bailey, second that. Questions, conversation
Actually,
on that?
The clerk should be doing this.
Oops. Oh yeah, right. I'm not here.
Thank you. Okay, so with that motion, can I please have, I'll call the question on that. All those in favor? That carries.
And that having been now in order, I will move that Councillor Pierce remain as chair for the next year.
Councillor Pierce, do you accept?
I do, thank you.
Any other nominations? Nope. Okay, can I have a seconder for Councillor Pearson? Mayor Bailey. And all those in favor? Yeah, and that's, thank you. All right, all those in favor for Pearson, close the nominations. Carried, thank you very much. Now opening the vote for any calls for vice chair. Councillor Chambers.
Whoever the existing vice chair is, I will nominate.
Yes. Councillor Howes, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, thanks.
And could I please, any other calls for nomination for seconder? For vice chair, sorry. Seeing none. Okay, so looking for a motion, which was moved by Councillor Chambers. I'll need a seconder for the motion to keep Councillor Howes as the vice chair. Councillor Coleman. So all those in favor and closing nominations. Carried. Okay, now I will move it over to our chair, Councillor Pierce. Please take it away.
Mr. Chair, you owe me a coffee.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers, and thank you to committee for that. So we're just going to start from the top again, and we're going to just quickly, as I say, as attendance, Councillor McAlpine is not here. Councillor Howes and Councillor Garneau are with us on Zoom. Everybody else is in attendance. So anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Seeing none, approval of the agenda. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Councillor Coakley.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will be conflicting out on the delegation.
Okay, any others? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Okay, so delegations. We've got Rita Marie and Scott from Lansdowne Children's Center, if you'd like to come up. Let's just give a... Okay, welcome. If I could just get you to state your names and for the clerk, and then you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Gary.
Rita Marie Hadley, Lansdowne Children's Center.
And Scott Lyons.
We're grateful to be before you today It's not our first time, and we're grateful to be able to continue the story and to bring what we feel is good news that we know is supporting us in servicing our communities. The needs of children who live with physical, communication, or developmental challenges have been supported in a long history in this community in different locations as we've grown. And those needs that have been able to support our community's residents include rehabilitation, so for physical, communication, or developmental challenges with the therapies that can help kids to reach their potential. And in addition to rehabilitation at the core of reestablishing function, the importance of keeping families intact so they can participate in the economy and support the other typically developing family members is so important. Respite as well as recreation of rounding people out to participate in their communities. And that recreation has allowed us to make sure that active kids participate in community programs, but also with their families. And that safe, accessible, quality service has been what Lansdowne has continued to be providing throughout this community as it's grown. And this being our 50th anniversary, we were delighted to celebrate with you during this special year. The growth that we have been charting and reporting back to you on has included being serving over 3,600 kids a year. So that's unique kids who may need more than one service at a time, which is significant growth since the formal incorporation in 1974. And the growth has gone along with some planning, and so we are delighted to bring to you today some news about that.
Thank you. And so what brings us here today is the exciting news that the ministry, as you can see and you would have read at the time, Michael Parza, the Minister of Community, Children, Community and Social Services, has announced plans for a new Lansdowne. And as you know, we serve a little over 3,000 children, almost as many on a waiting list. And it's just going to be a very exciting time to be able to work through that. We have some sort of preliminary renderings of a new build that will be 3 floors, approximately 100,000 square feet. And we're working through the due diligence of that at the present time. So it will allow us to improve access, certainly reduce the waiting list, easier access, more green space of the addition of a therapy pool, larger spaces, more group therapy, more parking, general updated infrastructure, and all of the advantages, as you will know, that goes with a purpose-built space for treating our kids. And so we currently have a property under contract in Brantford and are working through the due diligence with expectations for next year to be able to take this to the next steps. It's central to Brantford and Brant. We are under ministry rules and guidelines, not able to disclose the physical location until such time as that property is firmed up, which we expect in the coming months.
So the progress and the timeline does see us having done a lot of work behind the scenes since the funding announcement in January of this year. And the next steps will help to determine when we actually have the shovel in the ground, but they are now finite, and a future within a new facility is very clear to us. We're excited about being guided in those next steps as we've been working with a project management firm for the last 3 quarters of the year and with our due diligence consultants.
And so the funding of this, as I'm sure you're aware, is primarily through the province and through the ministry. And so we have their commitment for that now. And it is our time to approach our municipal partners and also put together a community fundraising campaign of which I will be the chair. So we're here today as you start to look at budget considerations for next year and beyond. to ask for consideration of a multi-year pledge to this project to serve our kids in Brantford Brant in the amount of $800,000.
We wanted to note with the growth of the county, which we certainly feel as well too, that the impact of having a new Lansdowne will help us with making sure that county kids are served in a timely fashion as well too. And around 900,000 residents of Brant County are Lansdowne kids at the moment. And we know with the increasing home builds, and we know with the transfer from other communities, with kids already involved in the center, we expect that number to grow. And we also share a commitment to ensuring kids are not delayed. So we're so keen to be on an aggressive timeline for this.
And so, thank you. We have a couple of minutes if there's any questions, but again, we respectfully ask how that works through into your budgeting process for that amount. I'm sure your first question is going to be, where is the city of Brantford on that? And we are certainly, it's just the timing of being here today, but we have been in discussions with the city and we'll be making presentations to them in the new year in ratios that respect the shared services model between the county and the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Committee questions? Mayor Bailey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, what is the percentage of the kids from the county that use Lansdowne?
It varies by program because of the 900 kids approximately right now relative to around 3,600 who are served. It could reflect a percentage at a point in time who may be needing more services. So I'm sorry I don't have a clear answer on that because it does fluctuate. Again, it's uniquely assessed, and at points in time we will do assessment blitzes so that kids won't stay on a wait list too long and miss junctures. But happy to follow up with more specific on that.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Rita Marie and Scott. I'd like to find out why there's so many kids going there. Like, what's driving the numbers up? But I'll leave that for another time. I want to ask, what's the geographic area that you guys cover? Obviously, Brantford, Brant County. Do you guys draw from?
We serve, Brant, Haldimand, Norfolk, Six Nations of the Grand River, and Mississaugas of the Credit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Will you be asking those municipalities as well?
Those communities are not expected as much to be attending at the new site because we will continue our dedicated teams and locations in Haldimand and Norfolk. So it's not expected that as to the same extent, in fact, less likely that Haldimand and Norfolk kids will be on site at the main premises.
Okay.
Because I would say in part, absence of the transit and a broader rural geography.
Yeah, okay. Just want to ask, thank you.
Certainly.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Rita Marie and Scott. $800,000 over a period. What period are you thinking of?
Again, at your discretion, a lot of our campaign will feature multi-year pledges, so likely 3 to 5 years.
Any other questions from committee? Seeing none on site, none online. Just one quick question I do have. So with this new facility, with more room, more space, more classes, how many of the substantial waiting list do you figure you'd be able to, in addition to, accommodate?
It's a reasonable question. It's a bit more finessed because the expectation is by having more spaces where we can deliver group therapy, that would allow for more throughput. So for the people who are on a wait list who would benefit from group-based therapy, right, then those are ones that we would see would be able to move through more quickly. So it's not a set percentage, but we have from time to time when we've done a snapshot, say, okay, who's waiting currently of them? What are their diagnoses? What therapies do they need? And does it lend itself to group therapy? So to an extent. It could be anywhere from 18 to 36%, but it really just depends upon the condition because the uniqueness of kids coming through our door.
Right.
Some may be on a wait list for straight speech therapy, and speech therapy is a good example of something that is social. You can do that in a group setting. We have to balance that with whether kids and families have the accessibility to travel for services, can be there at a group service, or whether they'll need accommodation and need to have something provided virtually.
Okay, I appreciate that answer, and yeah, I'm with Councilor Miller on that. It's when you see those numbers, it's shocking the amount of wait lists that we have.
Well, and just to add to that, I think the exciting part here, because that wait list has been growing and it's been growing across the province. And so the fact that the province is now recognizing this, there have been a number of new and expanded builds of children's treatment centers across the province in the last number of years. And so it's exciting now that it's Lansdowne turn as the province recognizes that.
Fantastic. Mayor Bailey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the delegation, what's going to happen to your property that you have now?
The intent is that it will be sold towards our financial commitment and the contribution we must make towards this.
You own that facility, don't you?
We do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Coleman?
Just come to me, Mr. Mayor, Chair. What percentage of the fundraising do you have to do for this project?
Go ahead.
It's fairly common in these provincial ministry and local builds for there to be a minimum of about 10% raised locally for what they call FFE, furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. They're talking about the same kind of numbers with the hospital. And so as we get through the finalization of cost estimates and everything, it will be a build that's in excess of $100 million. And so we're going to be responsible for probably 10 to 12 million, something like that.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, how does committee want to proceed? Councilor Coleman?
Move to receive to the budget.
Seconder for that, Councilor Miller. Any discussion on that? Motion is to receive and send through to budget. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to number 5, Councilor Oakley will rejoin us here. Adoption of the previous minutes. Can I get a mover? Councilor Kyle. Seconder, Mayor Bailey. Questions on those old minutes, previous minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, moving on. Consent items, we've got a few here to be approved. 7.1.1 RPT 0535-24, which is the tax write-off report. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councilor Oakley. Councilor Kyle second. Questions on that report? Councilor Miller?
Yeah, just we get this every year, but just to be clear, this is just through reassessments. This isn't unpaid tax. Is that correct?
Who's going to jump in? Heather? Heather?
Yeah, so Dustin, the manager of taxation, is here. He can provide more information on how we get to these write-offs. But this isn't just people didn't pay and we're not collecting it. This is because people have gone through like the assessment review board or MPAC changes, or just sometimes there's just errors in the assessment roll when it's returned in December. So that's what these are.
Councilor Miller?
Yeah. So further to that, so unpaid taxes is a separate report, and it's on top of that. Correct?
Correct. Yep, it's its own thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.12 RPT 0537-24, the intern tax levy bylaw. Can I get a mover? Councilor Bell, Councilor Miller, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.13, the appointment of an RPT 0544-24, appointment of an engineer for the Rathbun Municipal Drain under section 78.5 of the Drainage Act. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman. Councillor Kyle. Questions? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question, maybe clarification. Can we get the correct spelling confirmed? Is it Rathbun or Rathburn? Because I've seen it spelled both ways.
Who can? Mr. Walton?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, I think it is Rathbun. I'll certainly confirm that.
Okay. I wanted to ask, well, I questioned the wisdom of putting up a hog barn right on a municipal drain. The question is, with the engineer, how does one protect a municipal drain from runoff? Is that done through this process? Is it done along with, say, the nutrient management plan? Do we have any information on that? How do we protect the drain from the runoff from the burn?
Well,
through the chair to Councillor Miller, that's a really good question. And I know back in my days of consulting, there were municipalities where I did work where the municipality actually asked for contingency plans to be built into a building permit when they had a structure like this that was this close to a drain. We don't have that here yet, but it is not a bad idea. And some of the things you would do are quite simple. So we'll certainly work with the engineer on this one and make sure that if there's a catch basin near there, or whatever, that they've got a contingency plan where they could cover it up if there's a spill and that sort of thing. This is a bit of an odd situation here, and by them building the new barn, we actually is how we discovered the old problem with the old barn, which is built over part of the drain. So this should fix all of that, and if you read the report carefully, it actually will be at the landowner's cost too. So this isn't going to be involving the neighbors. It'll be picked up by the NR. And this is a relatively new section of the act. When I was writing drain reports, this section didn't exist. You'd have to go through a new report, and everybody would be involved. But in this case, if the works are limited to the one property, it will be picked up by the landowner.
Yeah, and just for that, Mr. Chair, that would, I was going to ask that question, but I don't want to presuppose what the engineer's report, but that would have been my presumption, is that, yeah, this would be covered mostly or almost 100% by that owner. So actually, yeah, I did talk to the chief building official about that, about, you know, the drain being underneath where the proposed hog barn is. They are not taking that into consideration, but I think they should. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Cole or Councillor Chambers?
Just for clarification, it is Rathburn who used to own the property to the south.
Okay, I was actually just going to close off by saying Google is our friend, and I just Googled it, and it says Rathbun. Okay, Rathburn. I'll take your word for it over Google. And that nullifies our coffee, right? Yeah. Okay, any other questions on that? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 7.1.4 RPT-0500-24 Solid Waste Control Bylaw and Solid Waste Program Update. Can I get a mover? Councillor Bell. Councillor Kyle. Questions? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to, I guess it's going to be to Matt if he's in the room, or is Andrea? Okay. First one is just a question of clarification. As we reach January the 1st, the residential blue box program ends, as far as we're concerned about paying for it. But to the customer, to the resident, they won't see a change. Is that my understanding?
Andrea?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bell. The residents of single residential users should not see a change. CMO did award the contract to Mterra. We have been informed that Mterra will be doing dual truck collection for the first year, and they should not see a change.
But if I recall, again through the Chair, there was an issue with respect to commercial or businesses around Paris, and I think around other centres.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bell, correct, they're no longer eligible per the regulation.
And have we help them to address the problem that they will then have?
We've worked with them, we've met with them, we've provided them with additional information on how they can manage this, and they've been informed that their collection will no longer be included with the municipal collection.
But we won't expect to see blue bins or blue bin material in black bins, black big bin bags to resolve their problem.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bell, I can't speak to what we will be anticipating with the change. I'm sure there will be some changes with the way things are set out, and we're prepared to work through CMO and other municipalities, working with the businesses as well to try to alleviate these pressures. It is not likely going to be a seamless transition, but we will work through it as it comes up through the transition January 1st,
Okay.
2025.
And if local businesses need a point of contact, that's you?
Correct.
Good, thank you. One final question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bell.
Right at the very end of the report, you talk about leachate and the offloading station that's going to be constructed or is being constructed at, down in Race Street. Have we communicated well to the local neighbours? Because they will now see, I think, it's 125 truckloads of leachate each year coming through that subdivision. I know we've had, John and I, Councillor Pearce and I often get concerned residents complaining about odours. Now this new leachate station should avoid some of that, but can we send out a communication to tell them what we're doing and what they might expect going forward?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bell, we can definitely do that. The increased volume of leachate going through to the Paris Water Pollution Control Plant is not a result of the leachate offloading station. It's a result of the new landfill operation because it will be completely contained through new regulations. So we likely will not see an increase until the fall of 2025 once Cell 1 is opened at Biggers Lane. But we can definitely talk about communicating the operational changes of the new landfill and how the neighborhood will see increased traffic.
Any other questions? Councillor Miller.
A couple questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If somebody's blue box doesn't get picked up, they're quite upset. They give me a call. I let Matt Daunt know. That's not the case anymore.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Miller, correct. Our customer service team has also been informed that all these communications will be going directly to Mterra. We've updated the website, we have communication, so we will be sharing that with them in providing them with the information on how to redirect their calls.
Okay, I'll have to get that information then.
Yep.
Because it happens more times than you want it to. Second question then, about a couple of years ago, we were concerned that these new cells would not be open in time. We would fill up our current landfill, and then we would have to maybe talk to Brantford and ship it there. So it sounds like that's not going to be the case. The cells will be ready before the old landfill is built. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, yep, the landfill construction is on par, and we still do have adequate lifespan within our existing landfill. The timing of it will be seamless.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
It's been a long process, over 10 years, so it's good to read the report.
Any other questions on that? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, sir, for indulging me. Just one further communication opportunity, I think, Andrew, is Schedule A, which I found really interesting, to know what I could throw away, what would be collected and what I couldn't throw away and what wouldn't be collected. I'm going to guess that the average resident doesn't know this list in the detail in which you've given it. I just wonder whether there's an opportunity to communicate that. I'm not suggesting you send all however many pages of the schedule there are, but if we could provide a link that our residents could click on and read if they're interested, I think it'd be really helpful. It might avoid some disputes going forward.
Through you, Chair, we can include a link to the bylaw, no problem.
Any other questions on that? Okay, just very quickly myself, I had two, but Councillor Bell, you just nailed the one question I had, and that just educating the public as to what can and cannot be sent out. The other question I have in regards to the new offload at the Paris wastewater there, are we going to get back now that the trucks are going to be able to pull in, turn around, and come out? Will that put them back to their old route of coming down Washington and turning up Old Mill? Or will they continue to go hillside and around?
Directly to you, Chair, I am not sure about their route. I can follow up unless Rob has that answer.
Through the chair to the chair. I think that the better turnaround on the site is going to happen when it's redeveloped with the next upgrades. I don't think that it's happened just yet. So, but we can get back to you on that.
Okay, yeah, because until it was determined they should not be backing in, the route was always Washington to Old Mill and then to Race. So yeah, if you just let us know and then let the residents know as well, that'd be great. Appreciate that. Okay, seeing no other questions, all those in favor of the report? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 7.2, consent items to be received. Does anybody want any pulled? Councillor Oakley?
Through you, 7.2.4.
Okay. Any others being pulled? Councillor Coleman?
I think Councillor Oakley said 7.24.
Yes.
Thanks. So wanted to do.
Any others to be pulled? Okay, we're going to move 7.2.1, 2, and 3. Can I get a mover for those? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Oakley. No questions on 1, 2, and 3. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 7.2.1.4, we'll go to Councillor Oakley, then Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I thought this was a very interesting note. And I think it's worth having a conversation about, though we don't have a specific idea of what direction we should take at this moment. But I think it's worth noting that I've had some conversations with other municipalities along with our general manager of community services. General manager met about his past experience in Haldeman, and he can correct me if I'm misremembering. But I think it's interesting that we strike this sort of middle ground of requiring that projects have a 25% fundraising versus the construction cost, but we don't hold back the construction of the project till that's completed. You know, for example, the Wilkins Family Community Center is basically pretty close to being done, and we're not done fundraising it yet. But what are we going to do? We're going to keep the doors locked if we don't hit that number. I don't think so. Versus other communities where they are either all the grant money or all the donation money is sort of a nice to have, and we don't have a specific goal to get to, or it's required and the project doesn't start construction, like I believe Haldeman, until all that money is retrieved, so that we ensure that we actually get there. So I think there's also that to factor into this conversation on what exactly we're doing with sort of this community fundraising, as I believe our intent is to find to ensure that the project has community support by having a fundraising allotment. But if we're already building it and then we don't get any donations, what are we going to do? Just mothball a completed building because we didn't get any community donations? I don't think so. I think there's even some conversation to be had there, along with whether or not 25% is enough.
Okay, Councillor Coleman, want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do, and I agree with Councillor Oakley. It was a good report, and having been involved with a couple of fundraising, but Twin Pad, Haynesville Community Center, and whatnot, I really took to heart about that the well is drying up, and there's only so much base out there, no matter what, that people can afford to give anymore. And we're not discussing projects or anything like that, but I really think I go to the latter, is that these projects maybe not need to start until we have attained a fair amount of the fundraising, because somebody's going to be on the hook. We're having trouble meeting some of these right now, and you don't get that, as I've told, if you don't get that big fish right off the bat, all those little $1,000 checks take a long time to get to $1 million or $1.5 million. You got to have that big dollar one, and that's what happened at Twin Pad. It happened at Kanesville. It happened at the Health Hub. You've got to have that big donation, and I just wonder how far we have depleted the community on some of these fundraisers. I go back and I can throw into the pool and everything like that. We did here. It all takes money, and I think. And then we're also looking at what we just heard from Lansdowne Hospital, everything else. I just wonder, we maybe need to relook at this sooner than later.
Councillor Miller?
This is a report that come out without a hospital campaign going on. And we heard this morning the Lansdowne campaign's going on. So if we see fatigue now, I don't see it getting better in the near future. I like the one line in there, capital fundraising can strengthen civic engagement, fostering trust in government, encouraging future participation. I wanted to ask maybe the authors of the report or whoever about, have they solicited partnerships with any community groups or clubs when we're doing fundraising? And if you look around us, I know out in our ward, and I'm sure it's the same in other wards, a lot of the infrastructure we have, especially as far as rec goes, has been built with the help of community groups or community clubs. For example, the Burford Arena, right? I mean, that's not a small thing, but it was the Burford Lions that carried the lion's share of it. We have a nice walking path in Burford, and that was, sponsored by the Burford Lions. We have the Optimus Splash Pad, and now we have the Optimus Skate Park. So these are significant community assets. The skate park, I believe the Optimus put in $200,000 towards it. So if you look at these groups, Councillor Coleman said it's getting tougher and tougher to get the big fish, and that's in the report as well. But the thing is about the community groups, community clubs, they can reach a lot of the smaller fish, through those $10, $20, $30 donations, whether it's a spaghetti dinner, pancake dinner, fish fry, raffles, whatnot. And they can quickly raise, well, I won't say quickly, but they can generate $20,000, $25,000. And they can do that pretty good. Just look at the St. George Lions. We had the volunteer night the other night. They are 63 members strong. So there's a lot of potential there. So my question, I guess, to staff then is have they considered reaching out and working with the many service clubs or organizations we have throughout the county when we're considering one of these?
Thank you. Through the chair, good morning. Great question, Councillor Miller. Yes, over the course of the county's capital fundraising campaigns, we've been very fortunate to have cooperation and very generous giving patterns from our service clubs. Just recently, we saw the Paris Seniors Club 99 celebrated in the paper for their donation to the Wilkin Family Community Center. Certainly the Lions Club, the Optimist Club, as you've suggested, and you're absolutely right, they're able to pull that larger group of not lead gifts, I'll call it, together, which add up quickly, and we're certainly grateful for. But we're experiencing that same degree of, I use the word fatigue for lack of a better word, but folks have become accustomed to us asking, and they have stepped up to the plate. And I do hope that's how this report reads. The intent of the report is to highlight how fortunate we have been to have such a dedicated group of folks who are willing to support our capital campaigns, but at the same time balance that with honesty, and that is that we have continued to make asks in quick succession over the course of the last 3 years.
Councilor Miller?
Just a quick follow-up. I would make that part of the process, right? We've got a big project going on wherever. I would have a couple staff go to all the service clubs in that area that you think would be interested. Go with both ward councillors if they're available and make that pitch. I would make that part of the process. And Mr. Chair, I don't know about you, but I've heard it from a few members of the public. Why don't we have an indoor pool? And my response is always to them, well, then start a fundraising campaign, because I think that's a great idea, but it has to start there. So I'll do that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, earlier this year, the Canada Revenue Agency made some changes to how corporations are taxed in relation to donations, and the long and the short of it was they didn't offer the same value to the bottom line as they once did. I'm just wondering if we've heard any feedback in that regard as to influencing businesses' capacity to give.
Through the chair to Councillor Garneau, yes, anecdotally, we have heard that feedback.
Thank you.
Councillor Oakley, then Councillor Bell.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Leslie. Have we done sort of a market analysis of what other communities are doing in regards to, you know, fundraising goals, what percentage of the cost it is, you know, what scale of project, you know, how much a project needs to cost before they start considering fundraising, things like that. Because I think, you know, perhaps we're looking to fundraise on too many projects, and that might explain part of our fatigue. And then I also just want to make a quick comment in regards to the service clubs that Councillor Miller made. I absolutely agree that our service clubs are a huge, you know, resource and benefit to our community. But I think as well, as highlighted in the report, I mean, while, you know, the Lions Club has the Lions Park here and there's Optimist Park, I had someone reach out from Kiwanis asking, you know, what the feasibility of doing a Kiwanis Park would be, and the fact of the matter is, you know, those things were, even adjusting for inflation, much cheaper, much easier to do with, you know, just gathering up all the small fish that the service clubs can do, and versus now where the cost of doing anything is so great that these clubs just can't do it all on their own, right? So I think that's I think part of what this report is saying, which is construction costs have now gotten so high that it's just not feasible. So yeah, I'm curious if we've done any sort of a market analysis there of comparators.
So through the chair to Councillor Oakley, no, we've not conducted formal market analysis. Certainly we have a pretty robust set of, excuse me, guidelines that we follow, and certainly we base our best practices on historical campaigns and how they've worked. We are, as the report notes, we are currently researching both donor software management as well as donor prospect research software. Certainly a market research analysis project could be undertaken as well at council's direction, of course. But to your point, there is some additional research I think that needs to be done perhaps before we embark on sticking to a 25% campaign goal.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Leslie. Thank you for the report. Very helpful. What comes clear to me is that the scale of the ask as we go forward is going to increase significantly. If I think about the hospital, that's going to be a really huge ask. The library is a big ask, bigger than anything we've done before. And I guess that's going to play into the concerns of many taxpayers who, at the same time, we're raising taxes, and we're a part of what we ask of them in taxes ultimately then goes to provide the municipal contribution to the facilities we're then asking them to provide donations to. Do we have any sense of how much our residents already pay effectively through their taxes for the facilities that we're asking them to fundraise for? I'm thinking now on a per person basis. So if we took the Wilkins Centre, for example, 1.2 million of that is being paid basically by the taxpayer. So already the taxpayer is paying a certain amount for that, and then we're asking for more. I think when you get to the scale of the library and the hospital, that's really going to make it a very, very difficult ask. And I think we may need to then reflect and ask for, you know, a little bit more. I'm not suggesting we're not professional at what we do, but this is a scale change that we're not familiar with. And have we asked for people that have worked on projects of that scale as to how we can go about doing it and successfully?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell. So to answer the first portion of your question, which if I understood correctly is have we given consideration to how much our residents are paying through the tax base to fund these projects, I would have to defer to my friends in finance to answer that question for me. And with respect to your second question, I just want to get clear, what exactly are you asking? Have we reached out to folks who have run campaigns of this size, of those that we're expecting to see? To date, no, we have not. But certainly as the fundraising goals and projects are increasing, we will need to undertake that research.
Sorry, and if I may, Mr. Chair, I noticed that for the library that the library CEO is going to be in charge of the fundraising. Has she in turn reached out to for professional help?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, unfortunately I can't comment on that. I'm not involved with the library campaign at this time. My suggestion certainly to your earlier point would be for donor prospect research to be conducted as the campaign perhaps gets started, but I can't comment on what sort of professional assistance the CAO has pulled in.
Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Am I permitted to offer at least a partial response to Councillor Bell's question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just in response to that question and a fair one. And it would be more appropriate for the library CAO to send in a Friday file or attend one of our upcoming council meetings to give an update on that specific question. But there is a fundraising campaign for the new branch library, and there is a fundraising professional who has been engaged. Two actually fundraising professionals who have been engaged to assist in that process.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Councillor Oakley?
Just very quickly, and not to throw our friends at the library under the bus, because that's not really what I'm aiming at, but I think it's important to highlight there as well that the core message of this report is 25% too much. And even in that, the library project, $5 million fundraising goal is not 25% of the cost of that project. It's, I think, just over 10% of the cost of that project. So I think that sort of highlights the issue here that, if we were talking 25% of that project, we'd be looking to fundraise that instead almost $10 million. So I think that's sort of emblematic of this topic.
Duly noted. No other questions? Okay. This is a report to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on to section 8, staff reports. 8.1, which is RPT 0543-24, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Update. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Oakley. Questions on that report? Okay, now seeing none, there's a, Councillor Bell? I don't know, I guess it can come to Brian or Leslie, but to what extent does this address issues such as homelessness in our community? I should know, but I'm admitting that I don't know.
Through the chair, homelessness will be one of the pillars that will be highlighted going forward in the next iteration of our plan. It was something that we did start some action on in the previous plan, but I think as everyone in this room knows, it's a really large issue with no clear direct answers, but we are certainly going to work towards positive outcomes in the next report.
Okay, so I believe there's a caveat to this here. If committee deems it necessary to add a member to this committee, what's committee's thoughts on that? Councillor Kyle?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you. I certainly think if it's will of council, we should do that, and I would be interested if there was, if we do decide that we'd like to put someone.
Okay. Your a motion first of all to add a member to that committee. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bell. Any questions on that specific part? Okay, so I'm going to ask for all in favor to adding a member. Opposed? That is carried. Now I will ask for nomination to add the member. Mayor Bailey. Councillor Kyle, you accept? Any other nominations? Motion to close. Councillor Coleman. Okay, all those in favor of appointing Councillor Kyle to this committee? Opposed? That is passed. Okay, Councillor Kyle, thank you very much for that. So now I have to get a we have to vote on the staff report with the addition of Councillor Kyle to that. So all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, 8.2, RPT 0528-24, Automated Speed Enforcement Bylaw and Guidelines for Review. Can I get a mover? Councillor Oakley. Second? Councillor Kyle. Questions? No questions. That's a great report. No questions. Wow. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you for that. 8.3 RPT 0541-24, Purchase Vehicles Outfitted for Winter Operations. Mover? Councillor Coleman. Second? Councillor Chambers. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.4 RPT 0462-24, the pre-budget tender approval for various capital projects. Can I get a mover? Councillor Miller. Councillor Oakley. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, moving on to section 9, committee reports. Brant Connects, can I get a mover? Councillor Miller, Mayor Bailey, questions on the Brant Connects report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9.2, tourism. Councillor Oakley, Councillor Kyle. Questions? Councillor Oakley.
Through the chair, not a question. I just wanted to, as it's the last Tourism Advisory Committee, thank all the members over the years that have participated in helping making our community a better place.
Thank you for that. No other questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9.3, Brant Heritage Committee. Can I move her? Councillor Coleman, Mayor Bailey. Questions? Councillor Bell, then Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In the report, item number 1 says that the restoration plan for Borkett Centre and New County Brant Parish Library be approved as submitted. Could somebody share with us what that plan is?
Who can speak to that? Steve? Councillor Howes? Councillor Steve Howes?
Thank you. That might be a question better posed to the project manager for the Pocket Center and Old Town Hall new library. We had the heritage consultant from the architect's firm come speak to the Heritage Committee last week with just reviewing details of the deterioration of the building, details about temporary measures that have been used to try and mitigate deterioration of the building, and then showing us an outline of what the goals and plans are to do the heritage restoration of the building if and when the project is approved. And the Heritage Advisory Committee, as a advisory committee to council, reviewed that presentation and liked what they saw and approved the proposal from their perspective. And that information could be provided to council in a Friday file, I would imagine, but that's a question for the project manager.
Okay, and,
Could I just make one more comment? I think then Councillor Coleman wants to make a comment, but I would have assumed that the restoration plan would have formed the basis for any tender documentation. Is that correct?
I think that's a fair question. Mr.
Sorry,
Walton?
sorry, could you repeat the questions? Sorry.
Yeah, through the chair, I would have assumed that the restoration plan for the Borkett Centre and the new County Parish Library would have been translated into a part of the requisition that, or the tender that went out for doing this work. So I'm a little surprised it's come up as a separate item. It kind of made me think, is there something else? Is this something that goes on top of what has already been tendered?
No, thank you for that. I just didn't hear you before. So what's happening is the project's out for tender right now, and I believe the subtender is actually closed this week. I'm not sure which day it is, but it is this week. Those works that were discussed at the Heritage Committee are all mostly included in the tender. So it's not that you don't have changes that come up on a project like this during construction, but what's known in the drawings would have been part of the tenders.
Okay, so we've got to go Councillor Miller, Councillor Coleman, then Mayor Bailey.
Well, it's all on number one. If you want to separate that, I'd be willing to vote on the other two separately, but I'll leave that with you. No, I just want to know, I mean, if we approve one, what are we committing ourselves to? I think this should say that the Brant Heritage Committee approves of it as submitted. I don't think it should come to us like this and ask us to approve the Brant Heritage Committee recommendations, because I don't like the implications of that.
Okay, Councillor Coleman.
And I'm following along the same line as Councillor Miller, Mr. Chair. I was actually going to move that we separate number one. I don't like the way that's being handled right now, and I do believe this should come to council before you spend the money.
Mayor Bailey.
Yeah, through the chair, I was at that meeting, and what it was is that the Heritage Committee were speaking with the people that were doing the work on the restoring of the building, and he said that the tarps that they put up were only guaranteed or made to work for the first year, and they're now entering their second year, their second winter. And what they're looking for, and what a motion was made at that meeting by I believe it was, it doesn't matter who, it was a meeting, a motion brought up and seconded that this number one here is going to have council spend another $750,000 to redo the tarps for the second winter. And I'm suggesting that we're so close to making a decision on the library / Borkett Centre that we shouldn't and couldn't really, in good conscience, spend another $750,000 for a decision that's going to be made very soon. I think it's excessive. I think somebody's, I don't know, I think it's very excessive. When you have something like that put on buildings like that, it is good for 1 year, so they say, and we're having a very mild start to this winter, and the decision is also going to be in a period of very mild weather. It's supposed to get very nice for the end of the week, and our decision for the whole project is not that far away, and I can't justify $750,000 for them to go up and secure what they've already done. So if you've already separated it.
We haven't as yet. We're still kind of
I'll
talking.
separate number one, then looking for a seconder. Thank you.
Okay. CAO wants to comment on this first, and Councillor Chambers will circle back to you. Sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Speaking specifically to the $750,000, I know there was some discussion between the project manager and the library CEO on this. My understanding is that money is not an increase per se, but it's a reallocation of the contingency amounts. I mean, I think a separate question is that accessing the contingency at this point in the project. But certainly we could ask for the project manager and the library CEO to come forward and explain that further. But my understanding is that it's not an increase to the budget, but a reallocation. But it is accessing contingency funds.
Response, Mayor Bailey, and then Councillor Chambers.
My response is between now and the council meeting, council, please read the meeting minutes of the Heritage Committee. It was put on the floor and seconded, and I believe the motion was to direct council to put another $750,000 into the project, and that's how I remember it. I could be wrong, but please pull up the minutes of the last Grant Heritage Committee report. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I don't think I am.
Councillor Chambers. I'll get to you in one sec, Councillor House.
And maybe I'm going to ask Councillor House to clarify this as well. The way I read this is that these are resolutions that were passed by the Heritage Committee. For example, if you look at number 3, that the Joint Heritage Committee meeting be held at the St. George Gaukel Memorial Community Center. We don't need to approve that. That was a recommendation by the Heritage Committee, and they're going to carry it out. I believe number 1, and this is why I need clarification. I thought I heard Councillor House say that someone moved that the plan that was presented to them be approved, and that stays with the committee. The committee has approved it. Where it gets a little confusing is that the report is being presented as a recommendation by the words that the following recommendations of the Heritage Committee from its meeting be approved. I don't think that should be in there because I don't think those 2 recommendations were supposed to be approved by council. They're just resolutions at the committee level. Councillor Howes may clarify that, but the report should be received, and now recommendation number 2 is a little bit different, but the report should be received knowing that the Heritage Committee approved the restoration plan, and the Heritage Committee decided to move their meeting to the St. George Community Center, and I don't see that anything is being requested of council to approve any restoration plan that we haven't even seen or know anything about, which we couldn't do, which would be, that's the first I heard it's that kind of thing. So I need clarification on that. I think it's a little bit sloppy how this, and not critical, but a little bit ambiguous is a better word on how this report is being presented with the recommendations.
I'm going to go to Alicia.
Through Chair Pierce to Councillor Chamber and hopefully committee's questions. So what was presented to the Heritage Committee was an update to the restoration plan. So the restoration plan was approved through Heritage at the beginning of the process. It's required under the Heritage Act because it's a heritage building. Under the not that I'm the clerk, but under the procedural bylaw, recommendations from committees usually flow through this committee, and then the recommendation from this standing committee would ultimately become a decision of council. So this is just following the normal process for that. However, when the restoration plan was first presented to committee, they had requested updates, and so this is what that was. So the restoration plan in its totality has already been approved. This was just an update as the site plan had been submitted, and there were some minor changes.
Committee, Councillor House.
Thanks, and through you, and thanks to Alicia for the clarification. And my memory of the meeting is slightly different than the mayor's, respectfully, and I don't recall the Heritage Committee having a discussion that says we should convince council to spend another $750,000. However, I do think that there is some confusion about the contingency adjustments that have, we saw a report on that in our Friday file this week, and or last Friday. I think it would be worth having the project manager and perhaps the library CAO, as I think Allison suggested, come and give us an update. My interpretation of this is like what Councillor Chambers was saying. This is just an update from the Brant Heritage Committee. Number 1 is not the Heritage Committee telling council what they should do. The Heritage Advisory Committee advises council, and I believe that number one is just saying that as far as the Heritage Committee is concerned, they liked and approved the Heritage Restoration Plan, and that's just advice for council.
Okay, so we're going to go to Councilor Carl in just 1 second, but just for clarification, I don't think the mayor said that they want to convince council to spend another $750,000. I think he said the ask was for council. So I just want to, there's no convincing here. There was an ask. I think that just a little verbiage there, but I think it's two separate meetings. But Councilor Kyle.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, through you. And I appreciate Alicia's explanation. I guess one of the questions I have is, so, you know, this report comes to us at this committee, and then it then in turn comes back to us at council. There's no plan attached to this, so would it be, I don't know, personally, I would like to see a copy of said restoration plan before we do inevitably approve this at council later this month.
Through Chair Chambers, through Chair Pierce to Councillor Kyle, yes, we can provide that as a copy of a Friday file. And just to provide some further clarification, the resolution itself does not include any monetary component in the wording itself. I wasn't at the meeting. There were obviously other discussions with which happened and which took place, but the resolution itself and the presentation did not, this specific component did not include a monetary ask. I do understand that there's been a change and that there's been additional funds of however amount which have been moved into contingency, but that would be separate from this. That's just, that is the project manager identifying that additional funds, or the consultant identifying that additional funds are needed due to the degeneration of the property.
Okay, so everybody's had a chance to speak. We're going to go Councillor Oakley, Councillor Bell, and then I'm going to say something, and then we're going to do something.
Yeah, through you, Chair Pierce, I have a suggestion for, I don't know whether or not this be a motion or amendment to one as it's separated when is appropriate.
Okay, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In this project, there's been a rather loose use of the term approved. I'll go back to June of 23 when we approved a line item that said, this project is approved. We had no idea exactly what it was going to cost, how long it was going to take. We had no tenders. My concern is if we, as council or committee and then council, approve what's written here, it will be taken as if the restoration plan has been approved by council, and I do not approve it.
Okay. Since you are the mayor, last word.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and the update by the people doing the work did not ask for any money. It was after the presentation when he explained about the tarping being good for 1 year. We're entering the second year. It was a motion by, I believe, Councillor Howes and Dan Brown that they approached council for another $750,000. I believe that's what I heard, but again, sorry if I'm wrong, but it certainly wasn't asked to come to council for another $750,000 to assure the second year of tarping on the building so that it won't deteriorate anymore. And my problem is not with that. It's if it were going to happen further down the road, but our decision whether the project's going to even happen is very close at hand. And to throw $750,000 at it at this point is irresponsible.
Okay, everybody's had ample chance to chat and talk. Alicia.
If I may, through to committee, I do have some proposed alternate wording that committee might be more agreeable to. Whereas the Brant Heritage Committee previously supported alterations to the designated heritage property at 13 Burwell Street, which were approved by council on April 25th, 2023. And whereas the project continues to progress,
with updates being provided to the Brant Heritage Committee and Council. Now therefore it be resolved that the Brant Heritage Committee and the County of Brant Council receive this presentation as information regarding the alteration of this designated heritage property.
Did you just make that up? That's pretty good.
No, that was submitted to the clerk of that meeting.
Okay.
That could be just an amendment could be made to swap that out.
Councilor Chambers?
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to read it again, but are you rewriting what happened at the Heritage Committee, or are you suggesting that we receive this report and then do that? Like, you can't rewrite what happened at the Heritage Committee. The council can't do that. See what I'm saying?
Through Chair Pierce to Councillor Chambers, recognizing what you're saying, the proposal has already been approved by council, so this was just an update that was intended to be an informational purpose. So whether the update itself, which was received, is approved or received as information, it's the same outcome at the end. The wording wouldn't materially matter.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because I've been biting my tongue for a while. My biggest concern with number one is nowhere in there is the word updated or update or anything. So to me, I'm reading number one as the restoration plan for the Bucket Center and New County of Brant Public Library be approved as submitted, which goes back to the point of what Alicia said. In my mind, that is the original plan that was submitted. I don't see anything in here about an update or anything like that. And as far as the potential of another $750 to redo the plastic that's up there, I couldn't agree more. And that was the question that I asked when this came to council was, like, I'm struggling with the fact that they're talking about the deterioration and how much it's deteriorated when that was open for years and now it's sealed off. And that's why I asked the question, and the project manager was going to come back with more information on that. But that's where I struggle, is the fact that it's now been capped for a year and a half, a winter and a couple summers now. I don't understand the extensive deterioration or additional deterioration as they talk. If that was the case, why do we even do that? Because it stood there for 30 years with no roof on the tower. So yeah, I'm gonna stop there. But what I want to do, okay, so there was a mover and a seconder to separate number one. Let's get rid of 2 and 3, then we'll come back and we'll discuss the alternative wording here. Okay, so we're going to vote on 2 and 3 only to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so circling back to number 1 with Alicia's amendment. Councilor Miller?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't support changing it. What I would support is referring it back to the Brant Heritage Committee for clarification. That's how I'd like to do it.
Okay, I'm being advised we can also defer to council and have staff bring us more information back in the meantime as well. You good with that, Councilor Miller, to add that on there?
Well, yeah, I guess we'll be fine. Whatever it is, it needs to be fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Seconder for that, to send it back for clarification, Councilor Kyle. Okay, so in essence, what we're doing is we're sending number 1 back to Heritage Committee for more information on exactly what this means, as well as to have staff get us more information as well. So when we come back, I'm assuming by council, then we can have more information and bring number 1 back to discuss again. Councilor Chambers?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the Heritage Committee can send back the resolution that the former clerk, and then everything is the way it should be.
Yeah, and just to add to that, a little bit to that, if the Heritage Committee would like to come and do a be a delegation at council for further questions, that's fine too. But I think just different verbiage as to exactly what went on. I think that's what committee here is looking for. So, Alicia.
If I may, Chair Pierce, through to committee. So under the Heritage Act, the restoration plan would have to be approved. We are under a tight timeline with regards to trying to get all of the pieces done. However, because council did approve the original restoration plan in 2023, referring this back won't impact the timelines that we're up against.
Everybody understands where we're going here, right? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Thank you. That was some good discussion on that one, and I appreciate everybody's input. Okay, so that going on to number 10, communications, Burford Veteran Crosswalk. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not looking for a motion or anything here today or resolution, but when the group, this isn't an official request for a stop walk. This is a couple members of the Burford Cathcart Harley Legion because they would like information to take back to their meeting in January. So my question, Mr. Chair, is how do they go about getting that information? They're looking at, they want to answer questions such as, is it even possible? They want to know possible locations, what's the cost? What kind of designs could they have? How long could it be there? So those kind of questions, like I say, they would like to take that information back to their meeting in January and discuss it among themselves. And if they like what they see, then they would make a formal request. So my question, Mr. Chair, is where could I go or where could I direct them or send them to help answer those questions?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. If the motion is just to refer this to staff to collect that information, we can get it together. I can figure out who needs to be involved in that. Not positive we can get it together for their January meeting, but we can definitely get a staff group to assemble that information for you.
Okay. Thank you for that, CEO Allison. So what else then is make the motion to refer it to staff to gather the information for those guys to make a decision on their formal request. So
everybody will second that. Any questions on that? Councillor Oakley and then Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, through the chair, I've also received a couple of emails and questions from members of the community in Paris looking for something similar. And I've had some back and forth with Legion on it, but it'd be great as well if in sort of this staff investigation, if we could have some community agnostic information tied to that, because I think this will probably be a request if this goes forward in Burford amongst our other legions and communities. So it'd be good to have some, if we're already doing the information collecting, make sure that we do some of it from a community agnostic perspective.
Councillor Chambers.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I know these painting crosswalks are not inexpensive. They're quite expensive. And if the legions are looking at ways to recognize veterans and the council is willing to assist in that endeavor, there may be alternatives that are perhaps have a better longevity than a painted crosswalk, which deteriorates very, very fast. And then there's a maintenance issue, and then there's the respect issue of having a not a good looking crosswalk if it's been run over 1,000. So there are other ways that municipalities assist legions to recognize veterans. Caledonia is a good example. They have the banners on their light standards. And there's other examples around in other communities that municipalities help legions which are struggling and don't have a lot of money to do things like this that may be alternative for their discussion if we're willing to assist in the amount of dollars that this would cost. So the report, I think, should, if we're going to do a report, there may be alternatives that could be suggested, comparable costs and that kind of thing.
Okay, I think we can add that. If I could just respond to something you were saying there in regards to the crosswalks and the respect of it, looking shabby and that sort of thing. I think we had that discussion around this horseshoe before, and it's the fact of, in my mind, it's a respect of walking on that to me. I would much rather see it on a mural on a wall or something like that where people are not. To me, that's disrespectful to walk across them. And I know they're popping up all over the place. So I think it's a discussion that once we get some information back from staff with potentially other alternatives or what it's all about, we can talk about it further. But I think we've kind of had the discussion around here of the respect of having that on a crosswalk and walking over top of it. So discussion for further time. Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, that's actually precisely the conversation that I've had with the Paris Legion, where their concern is with both the upkeep and also people walking over it. And I think it's definitely a topic of conversation that I think it'll be best that we take direction from our legions on how they want to be supported. So,
yeah, okay. Okay, so right now we've got a motion to direct this to staff for a little bit more information. And if we could just kind of add to that potential alternatives and just a broader spectrum of it, that would be great. Everybody's good? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 11, other business. We've attained to that. In camera, nothing. Anybody have anything else to add? Councillor Chambers.
Just a question, if I might, to the clerk. Is our council meeting in December, is that when we review the committee appointments? And if that is the case, which it is, then I just put people on notice that my appointment to SCORE is becoming very problematic to me because the meetings are in the daytime and I have a very difficult time attending. And I am looking at perhaps stepping down, so give people notice that if anyone is interested in taking my place on SCORE, then let me know and we can make the adjustment at our next meeting, which is a week away. But it's just not right for me not to be able to attend, especially what's going on at SCORE at this time. So consider that, and there will be an opening for SCORE at our next meeting.
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, with that being said, Mr. Chair, I will be remaining on the scoreboard because it is it's going through a funny stage right now. But we do have a membership paid up, and Councillor Chambers has been on for a very long time. So there is an opportunity for one of us to sit with me at SCORE, maybe only for a little while, but it would be nice even if something happened to SCORE that we left with SCORE in full complement. So it's a great point. If anyone wants to talk about it, I can let you know what the commitment's all about.
Okay. If nothing further, thank you very much for joining. Motion